Welcome to part 2 of the Paul Rose podcast story of the CD Late Show. Having not listened to this CD for quite a while, the main reason being that I haven't had a copy of it, but I managed to get a copy of it for the purposes of doing this podcast, and I heard this track Eastern View, which I'd forgotten all about, believe it or not, and that is a sample of a whale from something that I downloaded off the internet. The guy that I dedicated Lost to, Duncan Glass, a friend of mine, that was another track that I'd done. I think Eastern View was the track that I did after Loss, if I remember rightly, and yes, that took us a bit by surprise listening back to that track, because you forget about something and then you sort of detach yourself from it and you get on with your life, and things change and you move on and you progress. And then I found this track and I re-listened to it, and it took us back to where I was, and that was quite a powerful thing, listening back to that. There's also a track on here called Black Middens, which is... Black Middens are these rocks on the mouth of the River Tyne, and there was a ship lost there, and cheerful stuff, isn't it? Yeah, but no, this just music again. But there was a ship lost, and if you ever go down to North Shields in North Tyneside, it's a big world, and there's a lot of people listening to podcasts, and it's highly unlikely that most of you listening to this will ever go to North Shields. But if you are ever to go to North Shields, there's these rocks, the Black Middens, and this boat got shipwrecked there, and I think they were only 100 yards away from dry land. I think that's how the story goes, but they couldn't see it. It was so dark and foggy they didn't realise that they were so close to dry land. And the sound effect of the tolling bell, which is it's a Strat, it's a Fender Stratocaster. It is supposed to be the bell in the fog. That was the idea. How I got that sound was, if any of you are sitting with a guitar at the moment, or if you're not, try it. Pick up a guitar up and try it. Take the B string and put your finger under the B string and pull the B string half an inch up. Slide your finger up the neck so that the B string is raised off the neck, and then lift it over the G string so that the B is above the G string on the neck, and then hold it in place with your finger and behind the cross, so where the strings cross, hold it in place with your finger towards the tuning keys, and strum it, and that's how I got that sound. And it sounds like a bell. It sounds like a Tibetan sort of toning bell or something like that. Similar thing with the volume control as described in the track Transmission, but without the delay and the reversing and all of that. And again, it's just experimenting, looking for new sounds and trying to create imagery, paint pictures, without wanting to get too pretentious and up my own arse about it. Just create an atmosphere, a mood, a feeling, as opposed to playing a million notes a millisecond. I'm actually thinking it's been a few weeks since I did the last podcast, which was the Magic City CD, and there's certain things springing to mind that I didn't include in the other podcasts that maybe I should have done. And so I'm thinking at the end of all of these podcasts, 7 albums, 7 podcasts split into 4 parts, there'll be 40 individual launches. I'll do an extra one, which will basically just be an epilogue and just fill in a few things, because it's been quite cathartic going through all of these things and talking about it, sharing these experiences with you. It's really taken me back, and this is good. It's healthy. Anyway, more music. So that track's called Part of a Process. There's reasons for that being called Part of a Process. First and foremost, I wanted to be Richie Blackmore desperately in my early teens. Still one of my all-time favourite guitarists, and the playing on that was very much, I was thinking about Blackmore a lot. And that track is also comes from, there's a track on Slide Away called Throw Me a Line, and part of the process was, part of the process of putting Throw Me a Line together, I scrapped Throw Me a Line, and I basically scrapped this track along with it, and Throw Me a Line is the finished article, although I ditched it. It was the finished article, and before I got to Throw Me a Line, I did this instrumental track, and so when I refound it and we included it on this Late Show album, Part of a Process, and it's also called Part of a Process, which is, like I was saying before, the cathartic experience of learning, writing a piece of music, producing a piece of music, finishing a piece of music, scrapping a piece of music, going back to it and realising that it wasn't as bad or as bland as you thought. And it's all a process, it's all a learning process, it's all a growing experience. And it was this spangly silver Kramer guitar, or a hammer, or a Hamer, or whatever the bloody hell you call these heavy metal guitars, that somebody had loaned us. Oh, play this guitar, it's got great pickups in it, or it's got a lock and nut, doesn't go out of tune, so to say. But it does have good pickups in it, and the guitar does sound quite nice on that. There's 2 tracks on here called that are back to back on the album. One is called Return, and the other one was called Persona. Return, I moved back to Newcastle when I recorded this one. I'd probably been back in Newcastle about 2 weeks when I recorded it, and it's just an improvised thing. I think the E string is tuned down to C, the low E string is tuned down to C, and it's just an improvisation, and the improvisation I think lasted a lot more than the length of the track, which on here is probably 3 or 4 minutes long maybe, but I cut there was a bit at the beginning that is gone, and there's a bit at the end which is gone, and there was a bit in the middle that I liked, so I saved that, and then I put this volume swell thing on, just to try and build a little bit around it, and and that was just improvised. I didn't have a tune written or anything. I had no idea. I just was messing about with the guitar, and that's what came out of it. And Return was about moving back to Newcastle, and a lot of the feelings that came up when I moved back to Newcastle. So this other track, Persona, comes to the ding and ding ding, as you can hear the piece of music. I read this book called The Mozart Effect, and there's reference in The Mozart Effect to